Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this video, we're gonna actually be doing a part 2 to a video that I just recently put out there. It was on rigging ElaZtech. So some of the issues that people have rigging this crazy, awesome material, this stuff right here. You can see a whole wall of it behind me. I just absolutely love this stuff. It's from Z-Man. It's a material that's very durable. It floats, which is great for a lot of different techniques, but it's also very soft, which makes it very lifelike. It has a ton of action to it. So it is a great material for pretty much any technique in bass fishing, but there is a little bit of a learning curve, and we discussed that in the last video because it's so revolutionary, and specifically because it's so soft and durable. It takes a little bit of getting used to rig it. And I went through, I think, 3 different challenges that people have with ElaZtech, and I'm counting myself in that as well, because when I first started fishing this material, I really had some issues with it too, because I didn't understand how to rig it at that time. And it's very, very different than traditional soft plastics in a lot of ways. So after I introduced that video and put that out there, I immediately got a question from a viewer that man, it made me slap my forehead and just be like, duh, why didn't you add that into the video? This is a very important part of the discussion for rigging ElaZtech. And the question revolved around using jig heads or rigging a chatterbait trailer onto a chatterbait, and some of the challenges that you face with that. Because, you know, we primarily talk about like a Texas rig and things like that on the last video, but we totally left out, you know, rigging a ElaZtech bait on a jig head, which poses some challenges all on its own. And so let's go ahead and discuss that today. And the very first thing that I want to discuss, which was a question that I got from a viewer, so whoever that was, thank you very much. I'm sorry I forgot. Essentially what we've got here is we've got a little swim bait. This is the 4-inch diesel minnows from Z-Man, and I've got the little finesse-ized jig head here, okay? Great little jig head, great combo. So one of the challenges that I realized early on with ElaZtech is the fact that it's so soft and compressible that, you know, with traditional plastics, when I'm rigging any swim bait or any bait and trying to string a hook through it, you know, I've got a pretty firm grip on it. You know, like I'm squeezing it pretty hard just to make sure that it, you know, that I don't lose my grip. With ElaZtech, you really want to have a pretty soft grip. You know, just hold it gently. We already have kind of a dimple on this one. It's a little defect on this one, so don't pay attention to that. But what I'm going to show you is the reason why you don't want to like squeeze this thing real hard. So if I was to squeeze this bait, putting a lot of pressure on the body, and then I string this hook through, we're going to have all kinds of crookedness that you see there. And the reason for that is that you're creating these dimples, and you're kind of distorting the bait. And you can see right where I was squeezing that bait is exactly where that crookedness is coming from. And so really the biggest thing that you want to do with ElaZtech is you want to hold it very gently, and you want to string it through, okay? And you just kind of push it, you know, up onto that shank of that hook. And you do definitely want to know exactly where you're going to come out on that hook to make it straight. I've done this so many times that I know exactly when it's going to come out of the ElaZtech and to make that swim bait straight. And as you can see, aside from this little dimple right here that we already discussed is just kind of a defect, it's perfectly straight. It's actually really, really straight. And this is going to swim very well. It's actually, now I'm looking at it, not like perfectly straight. And sometimes it takes just a couple times. What I'll do is if I still have a little bit of a kink, I'll try to find another channel. You know, I'm not going to go through the same exact channel, and I'm just going to, you know, retry it until I get it straight. That right there, to me, looks really good. I don't think that you're going to have any problems with that bait right there. Okay, might just straighten it up, put a little bit of super glue on the shank. That's one thing that I always do with my jig heads, or when I'm putting a trailer on a chatterbait or a swim jig, I'm putting a little bit of super glue on it just to lock it in place. So that is how I rig something like a swim bait, where you're rigging the entire, and the same thing will go for like a Ned rig or something like that. If your exposed hook point is if you're rigging it in a exposed hook point type of fashion. So you know, that right there kind of combats that issue of squeezing too hard and creating those kinks and really putting that the shape of the bait, you know, in a weird spot. You got a lot of kinks and stuff in there. So be very, very gentle with the plastic. Don't crunch this thing like a vise. Just hold on to it softly and string this hook through. And that is not going to, that's going to allow you to not get any of those kinks in it. And again, sometimes it just takes a couple times for you to get it right, to get this straight. And specifically with swim baits, getting your bait perfectly straight is extremely important. I mean, the bait's just not going to work right if you don't have it straight. And yeah, there's going to be plenty of people that say, well, why should I go through all the trouble with ElaZtech if it takes me a couple times to rig it when I can rig it perfectly with traditional plastics? That's a great question. However, I'm gonna just mention that this bait right here is going to probably, as long as I don't have like a pike or something, grab the tail and you know, slice that off, which even a pike is going to have a hard time, you know, slicing that tail. This bait right here is going to catch 30, 40, 50, up to 100 fish on just this bait. Once you get it locked in with super glue onto the head of the bait, this thing is going to be way more efficient. You're going to have to do way less rigging overall with this diesel minnows versus another traditional plastic boot style tail. So that's my answer to that, is a simple fact that you're just not going to go through a fraction of the baits compared to traditional plastic. So anyways, that is the first tip. So let's get into the next one. All right, so this next tip has to do with something like a swim jig or a chatterbait and your ElaZtech trailer. So this right here is the brand new Chatter Spike from Z-Man. It was specially designed to be a very subtle presentation that doesn't take away from the action of a chatterbait. Very good trailer. And then this is the brand new Chatterbait Elite Evo. Great chatterbait. This one, the Evo is actually going to be one of the easiest chatterbaits to rig ElaZtech onto, because it has a less of an aggressive wire keeper than, say, the jackhammer. The jackhammer, you're really going to have to, you know, have a little bit of extra care putting the trailer on, just because you've got two, you know, a little bit more aggressive wire keepers compared to this one. And then you've got this lead keeper, which is really easy to put a trailer over, but it locks it in pretty good. So essentially what we're going to do here, the biggest challenge people have is like they take a chatterbait trailer that's made of ElaZtech, they string it onto the chatterbait, and it balls up like that. You can see the nose got all balled up. It's crooked. It's just a mess. It's just a straight up dumpster fire. So what we're going to do here is, again, we're going to use that very, very, you know, light touch here. You always want to use a pretty light grip with ElaZtech to get it straight. So we're going to find, you know, our straight channel. Again, very, very light grip. And we're going to pull the hook point through there. So while we're pushing this up, you're going to notice that you're going to start getting resistance, especially, like I said, with the jackhammer, it's a little bit more resistance. So at this point, instead of pushing up onto the base of the head here like you would with traditional plastics, what we're going to do is, with ElaZtech, we're going to pull. We're going to pull that sucker. And you saw what just happened. It just you know, ate up the back of that head there, which is exactly what you want. All right, so I'll do that again. Pull it back, pushing it right here. It kind of meets the wire and kind of starts, you know, balling up a little bit. We're gonna pull just like that. And there you go. It is rigged perfect. Look at that. That is pretty legit. Could be slightly better. Again, oftentimes I have to do it 1, 2, 3 times, but once it's all locked on there, it's good for a long time and a lot of fish catches. So, but you get the gist of it. Pulling the bait onto the head of whatever jig head or chatterbait or swim jig, whatever you've got it on, if you're just getting a lot of like, you know, a lot of bunching action, it's because you're pushing from behind and not pulling the nose up. So that is very important. That's something that I learned early on, and it definitely helps me get this rigged well. So it's just a small adjustment going from pushing from the back to pulling from the front that really makes a big difference. So, all right, so the next one that we're going to talk about has to do with jig head. So I'm going to get this real quick. All right, so this little puppy right here, this is the SMH Worms from Z-Man. This was something that Brian Latimer designed with Z-Man, and he also designed the SMH jig head. Really cool combo. You know, I actually use the worm with a lot of different, you know, jig heads, and I use the jig head with a lot of different worms. So it's not just this system, but they work really well together. And I had a viewer asking me how to get this overall package straight because they're having some issues. Again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just use a light touch, a light pinch, and we're going to take the jig head and we're going to Texas rig this. This is what this jig head really was designed for. So we're going to go in about 1/4 inch or less, and we're going to bring it, and you don't want more than 1/4 inch, and I'm going to show you why in a second. You're going to pull it over that keeper, that little welded wire keeper. All right. And then all I'm going to do is kind of lay it and see where the hook point should lay within the ElaZtech. And again, one thing that I talked about in the last video is the fact that with ElaZtech, you don't want to texpose. Okay. You want to dig that hook point into the center of that ElaZtech. That makes it way easier to get a good hook set, and it also makes the bait more weedless overall. So we're gonna figure out where it needs to be straight. You can see that right there where the hook point is makes the whole package very straight. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and dig that hook point into the center of that bait. I'm still going to put some super glue up here just because that even though that keeper's there, the super glue definitely helps keep everything locked. Now, with the exception of this small portion right here, you know, that 1/4 inch of the nose of the bait, everything else is perfectly straight. And that is exactly how I want it right there. With this particular jig head, that is exactly how I want it to be. It's not exactly perfectly straight like a lot of jig heads are, but this one's designed kind of with that degree of line tie right there. And so it is going to be a little less streamlined, but it's actually a really good jig head for like brush piles and things like that. It's not just dragging over shell beds and you know, hard cover, clean cover. It's actually a really good one for fishing around light grass, brush piles, things like that. So that to me is like perfectly straight. So if you're getting something like that and you're worried about this little kink up here, don't worry. This is actually exactly what it's supposed to look like in the water. So again, the biggest key is like if you were trying to then texpose this, then you'd get something like that that looks ridiculous. And I could see where somebody wouldn't be happy with that. That's not what you want. And again, with ElaZtech, you don't want to texpose. You just want to dig it right into the center of that plastic. And ElaZtech is so compressible and soft that hook point, when you set the hook, assuming you have proper tackle selection throughout, the right rod and the right line where you're not getting a ton of stretch or cushy bend, you should be able to have a really, really good hooking and landing percentage with that. In fact, I have a better hooking and landing percentage with ElaZtech than I do with traditional plastics. But that's also because I've learned how to rig ElaZtech better over the years. So anyways, that is how I rig it. Very similar with all the other worms and jig heads. I'm going to do it again where I'm going to show you what not to do. Now, you could even make it even straighter, so we'll show you that real quick. If you just take a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch, bring that over. Now, this is when you're really going to have to use super glue because there's a little bit of gap between the keeper and the head. And so you're going to have to put some super glue on the head to keep this little bit of ElaZtech locked on. But you could see there, once I dig in the hook point, man, that's pretty straight. So you could do that. I like a 1/4 inch, but what I don't like is I don't like doing this. Taking, a 1/2 inch or something like that and doing this. That doesn't look good. That looks like one of those QVC commercials where everybody's like doing something pretty easy, pretty simple, and having a hard time with it. That's exactly what that looks like. So you just want to do like no more than a 1/4 inch to get it over that keeper and not bunching up a bunch. But anyways, guys, I just figured I needed to do a follow-up video to that first ElaZtech rigging video because I missed some really important challenges that people have with rigging ElaZtech, just because I take it for granted. I've been doing this for a very long time. I really trust this material. I love fishing it. Pretty much all of the different bait designs that I use nowadays, I feel work better with ElaZtech. So anyways, guys, hopefully this helps you solve the problems that you're having rigging ElaZtech baits with jig heads, chatterbaits, anything that you're putting this material onto. So anyways, guys, thank you again for the questions. All of you out there who asked me those follow-up questions and wanted to learn more, thank you very much for that. If you have any questions or topics you want me to cover in a video, make sure you drop a comment below. Other than that, make sure you like, share, subscribe if you enjoy this content, and I'm going to see you out on the water. Trust the process, guys.